The sun painted golden streaks across the sky as the villagers of Anigbo gathered in the central square. Drums thundered, voices buzzed with excitement, and anticipation hung thick in the warm air. The chief, a towering man with graying hair and a voice that commanded respect, raised his hand for silence. "This is a day of great honor," he declared. "A dance shall decide the future of our village. The most graceful, the most gifted among you will become the bride of my son, Prince Ikena." The crowd erupted into cheers. Among them stood Adoma, a slender, quiet girl with deep brown eyes that always seemed lost in thought. She was not like the other girls, whose feet seemed to speak the language of the drums. Her world was made of threads, bright, flowing, endless threads that wove stories into cloth. She longed to be a great weaver, to create patterns so beautiful that people would whisper of them for generations. But her parents had other dreams for her. "You must enter, Adoma," her mother insisted that night as they sat in their small hut. "But, Mama," Adoma hesitated, gripping a strip of dyed cloth in her hands, "I am not a dancer. The others, they were born for this." Her father, a man of few words, placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "Then learn." The next morning, Adoma joined the other girls in the training circle. Zari and Nia, the finest dancers in the village, moved with the grace of river reeds swaying in the wind. Every step they took was effortless, every motion perfectly timed to the beat of the drum. Adoma, on the other hand, stumbled. "Look at her," Zoe sneered, crossing her arms. "A weaver trying to be a dancer. She moves like a newborn goat." Laughter followed. Nia smirked. Maybe if she wove her feet together, she'd be less clumsy. Their words burned, but Adoma said nothing. She tried to follow the rhythm, tried to move like the others, but her feet betrayed her. The whispers and laughter dug deep into her heart, filling her with shame. That evening, unable to bear it any longer, she ran. The forest welcomed her with the soft rustle of leaves and the scent of damp earth. She collapsed beneath an ancient baobab tree, her chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. Tears stung her eyes. "Why must I be someone I am not?" she whispered to the wind. A sudden sound made her freeze. Leaves rustled, and from the shadows emerged a long, sleek snake with golden eyes that gleamed like molten sunlight. Adoma did not move. Fear and fascination tangled within her. The snake tilted its head, as if studying her. Then, in a voice as smooth as silk, it spoke. "Why do you cry, little weaver?" Adoma's breath caught in her throat. The golden-eyed snake coiled before her, its scales shimmering like woven gold in the dim light of the forest. "Why do you cry, little weaver?" the serpent asked again, its voice smooth and warm, like the rustling of silk. Adoma wiped her eyes, unsure whether fear or awe should take hold of her. "I am not a dancer," she admitted. "Yet I must compete, or shame my family. I do not belong among them." The snake's eyes gleamed with something that felt like understanding. "Who says you are not a dancer?" Adoma frowned. "The others. And my feet." Obodil, as the serpent called himself, let out a sound, was it laughter, before he slithered onto the soft earth. "Dancing is not in the feet," he said. "It is in the spirit, in the flow of the body. Watch me." With effortless grace, Obodil began to move. His sleek form swayed like a river in motion, gliding in perfect harmony with the wind. He twisted, curved, and spiraled, each movement seamless, as if the earth itself carried him forward. Adoma stared, mesmerized. She had never seen anything like it. "You do not have to leap like the others," the snake continued. "Your strength is not in force but in flow. Learn from the wind. Learn from the rivers. Let your body weave the dance as your hands weave the threads." Skepticism flickered within her, but something deeper, a longing, a curiosity, it urged her to try. Slowly, she rose to her feet. Again, Obodil said. And so, Adoma began to learn. Each day, she returned to the forest, training in secret beneath the great baobab tree. At first, she stumbled, stiff and uncertain, but the snake was patient. He guided her with gentle words, urging her to loosen her body, to feel rather than force. Close your eyes, Obodil instructed one evening. Do not think of the steps. Listen. The forest whispered in reply, the rustling leaves, the chirping of crickets, the distant rush of the river. Adoma took a breath and let herself sway, mirroring the rhythm of nature itself. For the first time, her movements felt natural. Days turned into weeks, and Adoma transformed. She no longer fought against the rhythm, she moved with it. She no longer feared the dance, she became it. Yet doubt still lingered. The others are strong, she murmured one evening. They will laugh if I fail. Obodil studied her, his golden eyes sharp yet kind. And if you do not try, will you ever know what you could have been? His words settled deep in her heart. Back in the village, whispers of her improvement had begun to spread. Zoe and Nia, once so certain of Adoma's failure, now watched her with narrowed eyes. She was clumsy before, Zoe muttered, arms crossed. Now she moves like the wind. Something is not right. She must be hiding something, Nia agreed. We'll find out soon enough. Unaware of their growing suspicions, Adoma continued to train, her confidence blossoming like the first rain after a dry season. She had begun to love dancing. But the fear of competing still clung to her like a shadow. The village square buzzed with excitement as the second practice session began. The sun hung high in the sky, casting golden light over the dancers as they prepared to showcase their progress. Zari and Nia stood at the front, confident as always, while the other girls adjusted their wraps and stretched their limbs. Adoma, standing quietly at the edge of the circle, inhaled deeply. She felt the familiar nervousness creep in, but this time, something was different. This time, she was ready. The drums began to beat, steady and deep, like the heartbeat of the earth. One by one, the girls took turns stepping into the center, their bodies bending, twirling, and leaping in practiced rhythm. When Zoe danced, she moved with fierce energy, sharp and commanding. Nia followed with her own display of elegance, her arms flowing like river currents. Then it was Adoma's turn. A murmur rippled through the crowd as she stepped forward. She closed her eyes. She let the rhythm sink into her bones, let the wind weave through her movements. Then, without hesitation, she danced. She did not move with force, nor did she leap like the others. Instead, she flowed. Her arms curved like winding vines, her steps glided like ripples on a pond. The village had never seen such movement before, graceful, hypnotic, effortless. Gasps filled the air. Even the chief's son, Prince Akena, leaned forward, eyes widening in wonder. But not everyone was in awe. Zari and Nia watched with clenched fists. The girl they had mocked, the one they were certain would fail, now danced as if the very wind obeyed her. This is impossible, Nia whispered, her voice edged with disbelief. She's hiding something, Zay hissed. And I intend to find out what. That night, while the village celebrated, Zay and Nia followed Adoma as she slipped away toward the forest. They trailed her silently through the dense trees, hiding behind thick foliage when she finally came to a stop beneath the great baobab tree. There, they saw him. The golden-eyed serpent. Zari's breath caught as she watched Adoma move in perfect harmony with the creature, mimicking its flowing, hypnotic dance. The girl who had once been nothing but a clumsy weaver now moved with the grace of spirits. A chill ran down Nia's spine. She is using forbidden magic. Zari's mind raced. If they told the village, Adoma would be cast out. Her chances of winning, gone forever. With knowing smacks, the two girls crept back to the village. The next morning, whispers spread like wildfire. She dances like a spirit. She communes with the serpent in the forest. She has been cursed. Fear tightened its grip on the village. The elders, wise but wary of supernatural forces, convened in hushed voices. Then, in a grave tone, they summoned the hunters. "The serpent must be captured before it brings ruin upon us," declared one elder. The warriors nodded, gathering their spears and nets. Meanwhile, Adoma, unaware of the growing storm, returned to the forest to train once more. With each passing day, she felt her spirit intertwining with the dance, her bond with Obodil deepening. She had never felt so alive. But danger was closing in. The forest was unusually silent. Adoma moved carefully through the familiar path, her bare feet brushing against the cool earth. The wind rustled the trees, but something felt wrong. The usual chirping of birds was absent, and the air was thick with unease. Then she heard it. Voices. Low, rough, urgent. She quickened her pace, weaving between the towering trunks. As she neared the great baobab tree, a dreadful sight met her eyes. Obodil lay trapped inside a heavy wooden cage, its thick bars reinforced with ropes and charms to ward off spirits. Surrounding him stood the village hunters, their spears gleaming in the dappled sunlight. Their faces were tense, their stances ready for battle, though Obodil simply lay still, his golden eyes calm yet sad. "No!" Adoma gasped, stepping forward. The hunters turned sharply at her voice, gripping their weapons tighter. Adoma rushed toward the cage, dropping to her knees before it. "What have you done?" she cried, gripping the wooden bars. "Let him go." One of the hunters, a broad-shouldered man with deep scars across his arms, shook his head. The elders commanded his capture. "The village cannot risk dark magic." "He is not dangerous," Adoma protested. "He has only taught me to dance." But her words fell on deaf ears. A crowd had gathered at the edge of the clearing. Among them stood the village elders, their expressions grim, and Prince Akena, his brow furrowed in concern. The chief himself watched in silence, his gaze unreadable. Zari and Nia stood a few steps away, their arms crossed, their faces alight with smug satisfaction. "She admits it," Zari murmured loud enough for those nearby to hear. "She learned from the serpent." "The spirits do not grant gifts freely," Nia added, feigning fear. "Who knows what price she has paid?" Murmurs of unease spread through the crowd. Adoma turned to them, desperation in her voice. "Obodil is no spirit. He is only my friend. He..." "Enough." The chief's deep voice silenced all whispers. He stepped forward, his robes rustling. His gaze fell upon Adoma, heavy with the weight of judgment. "The serpent will remain imprisoned until we decide what to do with him." "No," Adoma pleaded, but before she could say another word, strong hands gripped her arms. "The guards." She struggled, but they pulled her away from the cage. "Please. Don't hurt him," she sobbed, twisting against their grip. Obodil's golden eyes met hers through the wooden bars. His voice, though soft, reached her above the noise. "Do not lose yourself, little weaver." But Adoma barely heard him as the guards dragged her back toward the village. She barely noticed the people watching, whispering. She barely felt the ground beneath her feet. All she knew was the aching void in her chest. Obodil was gone. And without him, she could not dance. That night, Adoma sat alone in her family's hut, staring at her trembling hands. Tomorrow was the final competition. But how could she dance now? She closed her eyes, trying to recall the rhythm, the flow, the lessons Obodil had taught her. But her body felt heavy, her heart hollow. The confidence she had once built, the joy she had discovered, it had vanished with him. Meanwhile, in another part of the village, Zay and Nia sat together, their laughter low and triumphant. "She won't even step onto the stage tomorrow," Zay said smugly. Nia smirked. "And if she does, she'll make a fool of herself." Their plan had worked. Adoma was finished, the village square overflowed with people, their excited chatter filling the air like the hum of a restless river. The final competition had arrived. Drummers sat in a perfect semicircle, their hands poised over taut animal skins, ready to summon the rhythm that would decide the future. At the center of the square, the chief sat upon a carved wooden throne, his deep-set eyes watching the dancers with quiet authority. Beside him stood Prince Akena, his arms crossed as he observed the gathering with interest. The competition began. One by one, the dancers stepped forward, each eager to claim the honor of becoming the chief's son's bride. Zay went first. Her feet pounded the earth with power, her movements sharp, commanding, and precise. She spun like a fierce storm, her red and gold wrap flaring out as she twisted with effortless skill. The crowd cheered. Then came Nia. Where Zoe's dance was forceful, Nia's was elegant. She moved like the river, graceful and fluid, her hands weaving unseen patterns in the air. Her steps were light as the wind, her arms flowing like drifting clouds. Again, the crowd roared in approval. The two girls exchanged smirks. Victory was within their grasp. Then, it was Adoma's turn. She stood at the edge of the circle, her heart thudding like a distant drum. The world around her felt too large, too loud. Her feet felt heavy. Her hands were stiff. The whispers began. "She won't do it. She has lost her spirit. She was nothing without the serpent." She closed her eyes. And then, "Do not lose yourself, little weaver." Obadiah's voice echoed in her heart, soft yet strong. She remembered his lessons. The way the wind whispered through the trees. The way the river bent and curved without fear. The way he had moved, fluid, effortless, free. She inhaled deeply. And she danced. At first, her movements were small, hesitant. But then she let go, let her body remember, let the rhythm guide her, let her spirit flow. She moved like the river. She curved like the wind. She twisted like the vines reaching for the sun. The crowd, which had begun murmuring, fell into stunned silence. The drummers, sensing something special, adjusted their beat. The rhythm shifted, bending to her movements rather than forcing them. It was as if the very earth was dancing with her. She did not leap like Zoe. She did not glide like Nia. She wove the dance as if it were a story, her arms telling secrets only the wind understood. And it was beautiful. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The chief leaned forward, his face unreadable. Prince Akena's eyes were wide with astonishment. Even Zoe and Nia stood frozen, their triumph slipping through their fingers like sand. By the time Adoma finished, the village was silent. Then, thunderous applause. Cheers erupted from every corner of the square. People clapped, stomped their feet, raised their hands in celebration. Adoma stood in the center of it all, breathless, heart pounding, eyes bright with disbelief. She had done it. She had danced. And the village had seen her. The cheers still echoed through the village square when the chief rose from his throne, raising a hand for silence. The crowd quieted instantly, anticipation thick in the air. Adoma, his deep voice rang out, steady and firm, "You have danced unlike any before you. You have proven your worth, not only to this village but to yourself." The people murmured in agreement. Even Zoe and Nia, still in shock, could not deny what they had seen. The chief turned toward his son, Prince Akena, who regarded Adoma with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. Then, the chief took the ceremonial crown, a beautifully woven headpiece, symbolizing honor and duty, and stepped forward. It was time. The moment every girl in the competition had dreamed of. But Adoma did not kneel. Instead, she took a step back. The chief hesitated, his brow furrowing. Adoma. A hush fell over the village as she took a deep breath, gathering the courage that burned inside her. My chief, she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion, I am honored by this moment. But I cannot accept this prize. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The girls who had competed gawked in disbelief. Even Prince Akena's eyes widened. The chief's face darkened. Do you refuse my son? Adoma lifted her chin. I refuse only the part that is not mine. Silence. She turned to face the village, her people, the ones who had doubted her, the ones who had whispered behind her back, the ones who had cheered her on. I love this village, she said. I have always wanted to bring it honor. But my heart does not belong to the dance. It belongs to the loom, to the threads that tell stories, to the patterns that capture the spirit of our people. Her hands curled into fists, not with anger, but with determination. We should not be forced into paths that are not our own, she continued, her voice growing stronger. We all have different gifts. Some are meant to dance. Some are meant to lead. Some are meant to weave, to heal, to build, to teach. True greatness is not found in doing what is expected, it is found in following what calls to your soul. The villagers listened, spellbound. The chief, silent for a long moment, studied her carefully. Then, to everyone's shock, he smiled. You are wise beyond your years, Adoma, he said. To follow one's true path takes greater courage than to follow the one laid before them. The people murmured in agreement. Even those who had doubted her now saw the fire in her eyes. The chief nodded. Then you are free from this competition. You may follow your heart. A wave of relief crashed over her. But she was not finished. There is one more thing, she said. The chief raised an eyebrow. Speak. Adoma turned to the gathered hunters, to the cage that held Obadiah. The serpent must be freed. The people tensed. A few backed away, fear still etched on their faces. Adoma stepped toward the cage, her voice calm but firm. Obadiah was never a danger to us. He did not cast spells. He did not trick me. He only taught me what was already inside me. He is my friend. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, doubt flickering in some eyes, understanding in others. Prince Akena took a step forward. If he meant us harm, wouldn't he have acted already, he reasoned. He has been caged for days, yet he has done nothing. The chief studied Adoma, then the serpent, then his people. Slowly, he nodded. Release him. The hunters hesitated, but at their leader's command, they untied the knots, lifted the heavy bars, and pulled open the cage. Obadiah slithered forward, uncoiling with slow, regal movements. The people gasped, stepping back until the great serpent turned toward Adoma and bowed his head in gratitude. Then, without a word, he vanished into the forest. A breeze rustled through the trees, carrying with it a feeling of change. The people of the village would speak of this moment for generations. They would tell the story of the girl who chose her own destiny, who proved that true greatness comes from being who you are meant to be. And Adoma, no longer just a dancer or just a weaver, became something greater, a legend. A symbol of courage. A beacon of freedom. A reminder that sometimes, the greatest dance of all, is the one we create for ourselves. The end.